I want to talk to you about something very special, which is what we call the shank bone of the lamb. Here's an interesting little thought for you. Do you know that actually no one on Passover eats the Passover lamb now? Why is that? Because there's no temple. The Passover lamb in the Torah and in Jewish tradition would have to be sacrificed and brought to the temple and then eaten in the area of Jerusalem. Well, since there's no temple today, no one can eat the Passover lamb. And that's why, but instead of that, to remember the Passover lamb, you have a shank bone reminding us of the Passover lamb on the Passover, the traditional Seder today. Now, just thinking that for a moment, that Yeshua fulfills the Passover lamb. The center of the Passover in Jewish tradition, and in fact, all Jewish holidays and all Jewish tradition having to do with the temple, everything comes forward into one thing, which is an animal sacrifice. An animal sacrifice is the center of all biblical Judaism. But just there's one thing, there's a law which is soul for soul, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. So how can an animal sacrifice make atonement for a human being? No, you need a human to do it. And so ultimately all the temple sacrifices of Judaism are pointing toward the Messiah who was willing to give his life, just as a soldier might give his life in war, as a mommy might give her life sacrificing herself for her child, as anybody. The ultimate act of generous love is to give your life, your soul, for someone else, and that's the highest value. This shank bone represents the sacrifice of the Messiah, and it also represents the highest value in the kingdom of God, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, which is love, sacrificial love, which the whole universe is based on. And now I just want to mention, it's kind of interesting that it's a surprise, of course, that the Messiah came as a sacrificial lamb. Our people are expecting a great king, a conqueror, a roaring lion, but he came first to be a sacrificed lamb. And that's why he came the first time to be a sacrificial lamb, and will come again as a roaring lion. Don't get him mixed up. Don't be expecting a sacrificial lamb to come back when he's coming, even though our people were expecting a king, a roaring lion, and we missed it, but it's going to be the reverse coming back. Now, just one little thought on that as well, and that is, wait a minute, how could Yeshua give the Passover to his disciples and also be the Passover? Well, what we learned was that in the time of the first century, there were actually two Passovers right together, two celebrations. One seemed to be of the Essene community and one of the Pharisees community. It seems like Yeshua and his disciples ate their Passover meal on the day before, as according to the Essene community, and then he died on the cross as the Passover lamb in the Pharisee community. So he ate it as an Essene and died as a Pharisee. But anyway, Yeshua, he is our sacrificial lamb.